You have perspective that some of us just don't have because we've never been told we've got 3 weeks left to live. So what can you tell us about the mindset of somebody who has gone through that experience?
So you have to be ready at all times, everyone, to hear those words, I think. Like, are you prepared if you heard those words today? Like, are you okay with your life? Are you satisfied with your life? Do you feel like you've made an impact, a change, a difference in your life?
Find and learn from people who lived it wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from people who lived it.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Hi, my name is David Rees. I'm 32 years old.
David, what story are you here to share today?
Yeah, so I'm here to talk about my experiences with cancer, cancer journey about 5-6 years ago, just some of the difficulties with that, and some tips to maybe encourage others.
Who do you hope hears this?
Cancer patients, especially. It's a very lonely road to go through cancer. So I'm hoping that cancer patients hear this, their family members hear this. There's a lot there to unpack as well. Doctors and nurses, absolutely. It's a very thankless job for what they do, but they keep people alive. I'm alive today because of my doctors and nurses. So for them, and just for anyone who's dealing with any type of physical or mental or emotional suffering or struggle or anxiety or stress or pain, hardship, I hope that they hear this podcast.
Man, it sounds like it's going to be a good one, huh, Dr. Dave?
Yeah, definitely.
Welcome to Learn from People Who Lived It. I am, of course, Matthew Blades. Dr. David Lycan up at the top right. How are you today, sir?
Hey, pleasure as always.
Yeah, buddy. So real quick, David, I met David. This is going to be a tough one today, David and David. Sounds like a law firm, by the way. We're on today with David and David. But I met David, Dr. David, when I was speaking at Seton Catholic Prep. I was doing a burnout clinic for him and his teachers. He came up to me after we connected completely. Turns out we actually have a little bit of a history together too, which was great. But I didn't know all of the things that you just articulated. I was completely unaware of the fact that you've been diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. I was completely unaware of the fact that when you were in middle school, you had suicidal thoughts. And I was completely unaware of the fact that you were somebody who, as you have so beautifully put it, has had 3 seasons of depression along the way. And that's a lot of what we're here to kind of unpack and talk about today. I'm real excited about it. Dr. David, I want to go to you first. I'm just going to call you Dr. Dave for the sake of this thing. But how has cancer touched your life in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, goodness. I've had family members that have dealt with cancer. And some were older and some were young, and it came up unexpected. And it's always a struggle. I mean, you have in your mind, it's such a scary thing to be diagnosed with cancer, and you start thinking about your own mortality and whether things are going to be cut short or whether you're going to be able to beat it, and try to find a positive mindset to go at it and fight it. And it's a challenge.
Yeah. And and then I asked you that really specifically because it's one of those things, cancer, it touches so many people. It would be impossible to find somebody who hasn't been touched by cancer in some way, shape, or form. We've all known somebody, family or friend, cousin, the guy at the supermarket, whatever. We've all known somebody who's had to go down that road. And for some, it's really personal. For me, it's very personal. My best friend in the whole world, stage 4 colorectal cancer. And it is terrifying. I think it's everything Dr. Dave just said. And so, David, I don't even know where I really want to start today. We typically like to start with the first 10 years of people's lives, but I know you're here really primarily to share your cancer journey with us. And so I defer to you. Would you like to start by talking about some of these things back in the day from like middle school and some of these suicidal thoughts, or do we want to just go right to your cancer journey in 2017?
I think it's a good place to start earlier with the middle school stuff, just because that kind of helps to understand my journey with cancer and
Yeah.
just how I faced it, knowing that I've dealt with these struggles before. And I think it ties a lot into the story of me having cancer and just my acceptance of it as well, just because of those past struggles.
Okay. So what, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade? How old are we?
Yeah. So it's like started in 6th or 7th grade, going to a public middle school. And I was very overweight and didn't really have the best self-esteem, and was kind of just going through some struggles. And it was hard for me because I felt a lot of expectations from outsiders of just, am I living up to my full potential and these kinds of things? And eventually I fell into this depression, very kind of out of the blue. My life was good on the outside. I had family and friends who loved me, who cared about me. I had, a bed to sleep in and food every night, and dinner and all these kinds of things. But I just had this overwhelming, I need to be perfect and I'm not. And it was a very, very heavy feeling. And one of my friends actually told me that she was seeing the school counselor for thoughts of depression. And I quickly realized that was me too. So I started talking to this counselor, of telling her that I was going through these struggles and sharing this diary that was just filled with such ugliness and sadness and sorrow. But I never told her about the suicidal thoughts. And that was actually something I held on to for about 3 years, and just kept to myself and didn't tell a soul that I was going through those things, not friends, not family, until about freshman year in high school.
So wait, I have to pause you.
Yeah, go for it. I'll just keep going if you don't. So
yeah, I know, right? Like, so you're having suicidal thoughts for years, and nobody knows about this. You're keeping that inside exclusively.
Yeah. So I was still seeing the counselor. I was still, kind of talking about these things, and that was really helping. But I just had this recurring thought of how it was going to happen. I was just going to go to a school assembly and just say I'm sorry, and then just kind of end it there. I didn't have the means, I didn't have the access, thank God, but it didn't stop this vision of constantly coming to my mind of, this is what I want to do. Like, this is how I wish it could happen. I'm feeling so much, I just don't want to feel anymore.
David, Dr. Dave, I have to bring you in because this is really where, you shine for us so much. But, why would somebody be embarrassed to articulate a suicidal thought? Why would somebody choose to keep that inside? And then what's going on in their brains when they're coming up with a plan? And now it's like, it's real, right? It's on the table for them. Can you help me and everybody understand the psychology of all of that?
Well, in this case, you have a couple of things that are going on. Certainly in middle school and into high school, people are trying to figure out who they are. So you have expectations from your parents and from people around you, and then you have your own interests and goals and things like that, and you're trying to figure out where you belong. Separating from your parents and from your family and having, your own identity, and that's a period of turmoil and struggle for most kids, I would think. I know for myself going through it, I had struggled with anxiety and maybe some mild depression, but you keep pushing forward. But I think that's pretty common. And it's interesting. So your thought was to do it in a way that was very public, right? Mm-hmm. So the way that comes across to me is there were all these expectations imposing on you from the outside, and the way to finally tell people no, I'm not going to do this, is to end your life in a very public way.
Yeah, and I don't think it was ever it was never a hurt. It was never something like, I want you to feel like I feel, and it was never something like I would want to place that weight on someone. I think it was that I wanted to be validated. I think it was that we see you, we hear you, we recognize that this must be hard for you. But also I was kind of the self-condemner with that because I wouldn't share with other people.
Right.
So it was also kind of putting myself in that position of I want to be seen, I want to be heard, but I don't want to share with anyone.
Man, I see this every day, and Dave, you must feel like you saw it every day too. But you can just see these kids in middle school who are really going through it. I mean, if you're any kind of self-aware, I mean, go to a middle school and just walk the. I mean, I know you can't do this, but like, if you're around that type of age group, it's like just pay attention a little bit, and you can almost see it on their face how confused they are, how distraught they are, how dark they can be in some cases. You can just lifeless almost. And did you feel some of those things, David? I can see you kind of shaking your head.
Yeah, definitely. Just kind of that going through the motions of, I remember just when I was journaling, it was a lot of this, no one knows what's really going on inside of, I'm just going through it, or just a lot of darkness is a good way of kind of saying it. But yeah, it's there. So I think to encourage others to talk about those kinds of things, that it is okay, because this was back in 2003, 2004. And as far as I knew, like, it doesn't have the resources that we do today of, a teen lifeline or suicide prevention, or teachers being open and talking about it. If you have questions, come see us. Like, it wasn't like that back then. It was very hush hush. At least I saw it that way as a middle schooler. I
have another question for Dr. Dave really quick, which is, like, maybe one of the reasons that some people don't want to share that they're having these thoughts is they're afraid what's going to happen to them if they tell somebody. And so there's a lot of different scenarios, right? And there's probably a lot of different ways that it could play out. Like going to your psychiatrist, your psychologist, a counselor, and saying, like, listen, I'm having some suicidal thoughts. Like, we're not just going to throw you in a hospital for 7 days and take everything away from you. Like, there's probably multiple different ways that that's going to play out. But do you think that that's a real fear for some people? Is they're just not sure what's going to happen to them once they tell somebody?
Oh, absolutely. It's a fear, and the difficulty with suicide, and I know this from talking to a lot of people, is usually it's a very ambivalent thing for people. It's kind of rare for somebody to just wake up one day and say, oh, that's it, I'm done, I'm just going to end my life, and then they go and do it. It's usually something that's brewing for a long time. People think about it, they kind of dip into those ideas a bit, and then they find reasons to keep going on. And so it's something that kind of comes and goes over time. And frankly, sometimes people are alarmists when they hear that somebody is having suicidal thoughts, and then they do call the police or try to get them admitted to the hospital right away. And maybe that's the right decision, maybe it's not the right decision, but I think it goes through people's minds, like, hey, I had this thought pass through my mind, but I don't want, to have a big entourage now. All of a sudden, I just want to kind of sort this out. But as somebody on the other side, as a family member or a loved one, trying to figure out exactly how serious of a threat this is, because you're talking about a permanent act. One that you can't come back from. So, people are going to tend to err on the side of overcaution rather than brush it aside. And certainly there have been cases where people have kind of brushed it aside and the person followed through and ended their life. It's a tough one to navigate.
For sure. What was your experience, David, when you finally told somebody that you were not in a good headspace?
Yeah. So I actually was surprisingly able to get out of that headspace myself. I was a freshman in high school, and I read this book. It's called Tears of a Tiger by Sharon M. Draper. It's a short book, maybe 120, 150 pages. And it's about this boy, Andy, and through all of these experiences, his friend ends up dying in a car accident, and the main character, Andy, thinks it's his fault. So he's dealing with this depression throughout the entire book. And at the very end of the book, he tells other people and they're trying to help him, but unfortunately it's just not enough. And he decides to end his life. And his mom comes home and finds him, and all of his friends at school are saying all these letters of, I'm so sorry, it must have been so hard. Like, we cared about you so much. Like, others were saying, maybe it was a stunt, or others were maybe angry at him. Like, how could you take this road? How could you, take this cop out route? But the letter that stood out to me that kind of changed my perception of it all was the main character's little brother. And he goes, who's going to teach me how to pick up girls now? Who's going to teach me how to shoot hoops? Who's going to teach me how to drive? Like, who's going to do these things for me now? And that just hit home for me. And I have two sisters, one older, one younger. But back then, and still a little bit now, I considered them both my little sisters. And I'm like, wow. And that was the first moment that I realized that decision would affect more than just me. That this would affect my loved ones, that this would affect my friends, my family. And it was freshman year of high school that I said, this is no longer an option. And thank God, like, it has never been that option again for me. Like, ever since reading that book. And then, like, I started telling people then. I told my friends, I said, hey, like, I was going through this. I'm good now. Like, I know that this is a closed door kind of a thing. And, I would tell my parents and say, they kind of kept an eye on me, but I would express those kinds of things. And I've done that throughout the years too. Some people were able to understand those thoughts of suicide or depression. Others just don't get it or don't feel that weight or say, well, what was so wrong or what was so difficult? And it's hard to explain sometimes, but that was something that I realized that saying, this is a bigger thing than just you. So recognize that this is, Dr. Dave, as you said, a permanent choice. This is something you can't, really come back from. And if it has those ripple effects, am I really okay with, my friends and family experiencing those ripples? And I wasn't.
What are you thinking about right now, Dr. Dave?
Suicide goes through several generations even. So it's not even just your immediate friends and family. And I think a lot of people don't consider how much they're plugged into the people around them. I could think of a couple of cases that I've treated over the years where, somebody attempted to end their life, and it took their family by surprise, and the outpouring of love and support that they received, because the people around them didn't know that things were that bad. When I had talked with them after the fact, they said, I would never try to do this again. I had no idea how loved and cared for I was. And not saying that, attempting to end your life is a way to, get that love and acceptance, but having experienced that, they would never want to put their family through that again. And they really had a true sense of their place, among their friends and among their family.
So David, let's move on from middle school. So you heal yourself miraculously. To me, it sounds like you gain perspective. I think, and this is what I'm so passionate about these days. I feel like everybody in this whole world is literally a sequence of words away from their entire life being changed. I can't say that with more. I don't even know what the word is. We are all just a phrase away from everything making sense. And it was a book for you and a passage in this book for you. For some people, it's a verse. For some people, it's a mantra. For some people, it's a freaking meme on Instagram. But so many of us have the capability to really, truly turn the light bulb on with just like this unbelievable sequence of words that make sense, right? Like for me, it was this idea of you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You just need to get back to doing what you love. Oh, nobody ever put it like that before. You're right. Because when you're in that dark space, and Dr. Dave, you can certainly attest to this, right? What are you feeling? Broken. You feel like it's all a mess. You feel like you're never going to get anything right again. And
tunnel vision.
Yeah, certainly.
Seeing like, just what's immediately right in front of you. And I think depression does that to people. Depression, like especially when it becomes a clinical depression, everything is cast in that negative tone. So even if there were options available and that you could see things that potentially could be good or could be a way to change the direction of your life, it just doesn't seem accessible to you. So yeah, I mean, sometimes it is just a phrase, it could be somebody calling you at the right time or that you just, run into the right situation. sometimes God leads you in a certain direction. You're not expecting it. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, wow, how did I end up here?
Amen to that. Well, listen, David Rees has written a book, and the book is called Battles and Blessings. I'm going to throw it up on the screen there for some of the folks who enjoy the video version of this, but it's called My Experiences with Cancer by David Rees. And so I want to bring this up to say, all right, you figured out as a freshman how you were going to turn your life around and make sense of it. And boy, would you need those lessons some years later in 2017, when you find out you've got acute myeloid leukemia, which is a form of blood cancer for people that don't know. So would you mind kind of telling us what's going on in sort of 2015, 2016 leading up to this cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, so I was crushing it. I was working as a youth minister at my church. I had just graduated college in 2013. And 2015, I met my now wife, and we started dating in August, and we got engaged the following September in 2016. I was working full time. I was going to the gym 5 to 6 times per week, and it was awesome. And I loved it. I was on cloud 9, and everything was going really good. And then things started to kind of change a little bit.
How so?
Yeah, so we got engaged in September 2016, and then January 2017, I started developing these weird symptoms. I had these red spots all over my body, and I thought they were like bed bugs, like bed bug bites. I had no energy where, at the start of a workout, I could barely go up a flight of stairs without being winded and exhausted. And I'm like, I work out 5-6 times a week. Like, I've run half marathons and I'm winded going upstairs. There were some nights where I would lay down in bed and it felt like I was suffocating. Like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get any oxygen. Blood sores in my mouth. And these red spots would start to spread for about 8 weeks. I was misdiagnosed maybe 4 or 5 times. And, oh, well, it's this, or, oh, well, it's that, or try to do this differently, from seeing different doctors, my primary care physician, all this kind of stuff. But then I got the actual diagnosis in March. So it was a Friday, March 10th. And I got a call from my primary care physician, maybe like 8 o'clock in the morning.
That is never good.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. 8 a.m. No way.
Nope. And he called me and said, hey, we just did a bunch of tests, and I want you to go to Banner Desert. I want you to go to the hospital. I think you have leukemia. And I kind of brushed it off, just nonchalance this, I'll live forever kind of a mentality of a 20-some-year-old, And but I was like, okay, it's my doctor. Obviously, I'll listen to him. So I packed a bag. I stopped into work and said, hey, guys, so just heads up. I'm going to the hospital, but, I should be back soon, and I'll keep you posted. And they knew I was going through some stuff, but I figured it was just going to be a weekend kind of a thing. I texted my fiance, and she met me at the hospital. And as soon as I got there, I was barraged by all these nurses and doctors, and I just gave them my name, and they just jumped on me with blood tests and IVs and all this kind of stuff, blood pressure. And about 30 minutes later, a doctor came into our room, and he just looked me in the eyes and said, my friend, I'm sorry, you have leukemia, a form of blood cancer. And if we don't start treatments immediately, you will have 3 to 4 weeks to live. And I was 26 years old when I heard this. And engaged, 26 years old, just living on my own and living life, planning a wedding. And it was just that kind of glass shattering moment. And he just walked out of the room, and like 1,000 thoughts went through my mind in 10 seconds. It was, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for Marley and I? 3 to 4 weeks to live. Like, are you sure? And I told him, I'm like, you haven't got the test results back yet. And he said, I'm 99% sure you have leukemia. We're just trying to figure out what kind you have to figure out how to treat it. So it was this massive freak out. And I called my parents, who were on vacation, and told them the news. My fiance, she called her mom, and her mom came over to the hospital to meet with us there. But surprisingly, I only had a freak out for maybe about 15 minutes. And then I recognized what this is. And I said, this is cancer. I've had two of my aunts had cancer. My grandpa had two different types of cancer that eventually took his life. Like, I know what this is, and I know what this can do. Like, this can kill me. This can end my life. But then I also thought, like, if the average life expectancy was 26, I've crushed it. Like, I've got to do everything. I was looking at other people's bucket lists to get ideas for my own. I'm like, I still want to get married. I still want to have kids. But other than that, like, I've done everything. So I just accepted it. And I told Marley, I said, I'm okay with wherever this goes. And she's like, but you're fighting this, right? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm gonna work hard. Like, I'm not throwing in the towel by any means. But just know that I'm okay with whatever comes from this. And thankfully, I'm still here today. But it was a little scary that first day.
I think that we have, and Dr. Dave, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think we have such an opportunity to learn from somebody who lived it, right? That's why we call it the name. That's why the name is this podcast, because when somebody tells you that you've got 3 to 4 weeks to live, there is pardon my language, there's a fucking shift that better take place in your mind, body, and soul right then and there in that moment. And if it does, you're dead inside already. But right. There is a life-changing moment there. You're talking about a sequence of words that changes the game. That one does. And don't you believe that he has offered an unbelievable amount of perspective in those moments too?
Yeah, I mean, you have to completely reprioritize everything.
Everything.
Because if you thought, well, I can do that in 5 years. I can do that in 10 years. Nope, you got 3 weeks.
Right.
What's the most important thing to you at that moment?
So I feel like we're so lucky right now. I mean, it sucks that you went through it, but you know how I feel about these things, David. And if you don't, let me tell you, I think that there are things that happen to you and things that happen for you. And this is certainly one of those things that, in my estimation, maybe happened for you. And it has been something that's allowed you to connect with people on a level you couldn't have in the past, or whatever the case may be. But nonetheless, you have perspective that some of us just don't have, because we've never been told we've got 3 weeks left to live. So what can you tell us about the mindset of somebody who has gone through that experience?
So you have to be ready at all times, everyone, to hear those words, I think. Like, are you prepared if you heard those words today? Like, are you okay with your life? Are you satisfied with your life? Do you feel like you've made an impact, a change, a difference in your life? And that's what it was for me. Like, I felt like I was at such a good point in my life. Like I said, if the life expectancy was 26, I've crushed it. Like, I meant those words. And I'm like, I had lived such a full life. I've done so many things that I've wanted to do, or that others, I feel like would only have dreamt of doing. And I was so satisfied with leaving my mark there that I was so okay with it. And you have to have that, because you never know. I was a 26-year-old who was running half marathons, who was in pretty good health, could eat more veggies maybe, but like, I was told I had cancer. And that was the thing, was the doctor's like, we don't know how you got it. It's not hereditary. It's not because you were smoking too many cigarettes. It just happened. So you have to be ready for that. You have to look at your life and say, is there anything I would change? Am I okay with where I am right now? Or do I need to make a shift? Do I need to make a difference? And to not wait, like you were saying, like, you have to do that today.
Yeah, it just seems like that's such a great lesson for everybody. Is like, and I know it sounds kind of morbid, but honestly, like, if somebody told you right here, right now, that you got 3 weeks left to live, what would you want to do differently? And I know whatever comes out of that answer will be your purpose and what you genuinely are here to do. Don't you guys agree?
Yeah. And I think another important part of it too is accepting whatever the outcome is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because
a great lesson.
It actually puts you into the best frame of mind to fight it.
Yeah, and that was a big thing for me, was, as Matthew said earlier, like, I'm a very faith-filled person. So I said, I'm like, there's nothing that I could do in my mind, to stop God from doing whatever he wants done. Like if God wants this to take my life, it'll happen. If he wants me to be okay, it'll happen. So I'm going to do my best to hang around here a little bit longer. But if he wants to make sure I'm not, then I have to trust that and I have to be okay with that. And I have to know that, in my mind, my perspective, that he's got a bigger plan for that. So I have to be okay with that. But there would be nothing good with fighting that. If you're angry or you're frustrated or you're upset, you're just wasting time, So you just have to recognize what you do have and say, okay, if I do only have this time, what is most important and what do I want to spend my time doing? Is there anything I need to change? Do I need to reconcile with anyone? Those kinds of things.
Amen, man. Well, breaking news. He lasted longer than 3 weeks. But I'm sure it was a tough 9 months, man. You talk about 7 hospitalizations, 100 nights at the hospital, 4 rounds of chemo, stem cell infusions, 37 blood infusions. And if I can really quick, because I do so much work with Vitalent, I just want to encourage everybody to donate blood at this moment, because what that 37 blood transfusions represents is 37 kind individuals who went in to give blood one day. So, David could stick around. So that's my nod for giving blood every chance that you can. But so talk to us a little bit about the next 9 months, man, because you were engaged to be married. So there was probably a wedding being planned that got messed up a little bit. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So, it started with me not being able to leave the hospital, actually. So I had to stay there for the next 35 days, I think, something like that. I wasn't even allowed to go outside, like the hospital grounds, like the hospital garden outside, I couldn't go to. First round of treatment.
God, did it feel like jail?
It did. Absolutely. Because I'm stuck here. And you can only sit in a hospital bed for so long.
Right.
Crazy. So I was able to move around the hospital a little bit. I could go down to like the cafeteria, or I could walk, the oncology unit, whatever. But you're definitely stuck there. And we started chemo fast. It was maybe 3-4 days later that I started chemotherapy. And I lost my hair pretty soon after. And that was hard for me because, again, this ties back into middle school self-esteem issues. I went bald very quickly, and like my hair's even thinning out now. I'm like, oh, that's what I look like, but it's all good. I'm here. So, but yeah, so my hair started falling out from the chemo, and I would just wake up some mornings with like loose hair on my pillow, and that terrifies you. Like there's no way to prepare someone for that experience of you're just going to wake up and there's going to be hair on your pillow and it's yours and it's falling out because it's dead. So for me, and for as a cancer patient and for anyone, you have to control what you can control. So for me, I said, I can't control my hair falling out, but I can control when it falls out, and I'm going to shave it. So that way cancer doesn't get to have this hold on me, but I get to tell cancer when I'm going bald. It's not going to tell me when I'm going bald. So I shaved my head, and my brother-in-law, awesome dude, he's like, do you want to shave mine? And I'm like, yes, let's go. And it looked awful. And I felt so bad for him. but like the solidarity was awesome to have him there with me. But that first round, there was so much good. There was one day where, because of a blood transfusion, I felt like I had enough energy that my fiance and I, we had a hospital date. So like I took a shower, I combed what little hair I had left. And then we went down to the cafeteria to get some food. We came back up, we watched a movie on my laptop, we got some popcorn, and she like snuggled next to me on the hospital bed. And that meant everything. Yeah. Like that meant like we had some realness. My doctors and nurses were incredible the entire time, but especially at Banner Desert, I love them. I can't say enough good things about them. I had some nurses like sneak into my room to watch wrestling with me, and they're like, shh, don't tell the staff. I'm like, no, we're good. Like, or talk to me about like my favorite Harry Potter book, and they just made me feel like a person and not just a patient. Like I was seen, I was valued, I was recognized. But then it also opened up my eyes, especially that first round, to other cancer patients and how much worse they had it than me. I saw people who were eating their food through an IV because they couldn't stomach anything else. I had a friend there who had her lung collapse, and she had to carry around an oxygen tank with her, barely able to walk. And here I say, like, I have a calendar in my room to say when visitors are coming, because I had to schedule people out because so many people wanted to come see me. I had a bed, I had pillows, I had all the food that I could eat. I had so much love and attention from doctors and nurses, so much care that other people don't get. So that was huge for me. And I told myself, I'm like, I am blessed. Like, I'm dying, but I'm a lot more fortunate than other people out there in the world right now. So that was kind of my big mantra, was I'm like, I'm not going to complain. Like, I don't want to be that person in the hospital bed, say, woe is me, say this sucks, say, I can't leave my room, because so many people have it worse than I did. And I was dying. I'm like, I'm good. So I tried not to call the nurses in, actually. And they would have to, like, pop in, like, David, are you still here? I'm like, yeah, like, I'm good. I don't need anything. Like, we're set. But just because their attention was needed elsewhere and on other people.
Man, what a mindset. I mean, honestly, it brings me back to, David, we had one of the earliest episodes we ever recorded was with a friend of mine, Gabe, who is a quadriplegic. And he too has a very similar energy to yours, and one that is just, it's really inspirational. There's no other word for it. And all of us could lean into that mindset, really. I mean, you choose it, whether you know that or not. You choose that mindset because you felt the other stuff, and so you certainly know how to do that too. But you've seemingly leaned into just a completely different mindset. So can we fast forward the tape a little bit and kind of get to the fact that you beat cancer? Or do you have a question you want to ask before I move on, Dave?
Yeah, let me just throw another thing in.
Please, by all means.
We've talked about this before, but finding gratitude, gratitude in the situation has little to do with your external circumstances. It's a mindset that you set out with.
Yeah, and that's what I would tell people who are friends or family members of cancer patients, because I saw it with my family members too when they had cancer, and I saw the physical toll it took on them, but no one talks about the mental and emotional. I always thought that cancer was 80% physical, 20 mental. It's absolutely flipped. And there's so much mentality and so much self-esteem that gets attacked, or just, Matthew, like you said, like just feeling like in a cage. I would blow up so many times or feel anxious or angry or frustrated, never with my doctors, but just with the plan, because there's supposed to be a plan and it's not there, or it's changing, or now I have to come in for a surprise hospitalization that I didn't plan for. And now it bumps back my dates and all this kind of stuff. So, that mentality means everything. But if you can stay strong, if you can have this desire, if you can have this goal, something you're looking forward to, like you got to have that, because that makes all the difference. And the nurses and doctors said that too. Like, your mentality is what it is. And, it makes all the difference in the world when it comes to healing.
How could you advise somebody, Dr. Dave, to take on that mentality? I mean, what could you say to somebody as a psychologist, counselor, psychiatrist that, hey, listen, I know, and it doesn't have to be cancer, right? Like, I think, let's speak in metaphors, right? Like, cancer is, yes, what he had, but cancer is also shitty people in your life, right? So, but how do you kind of edge somebody, or urge somebody rather, to adopt that mindset?
Yeah, it's really a choice. You have to determine, you have to set an intention to look for things to be grateful for. And it's something that you can exercise. It's not something that you're automatically born with. I mean, I think some people grow up and they find this earlier on, but if somehow you miss that and you find yourself in a very difficult situation, you can cultivate a mindset of finding things to be grateful for. Just stop, look at your circumstances, and just kind of think about where you are, and things will come to you if you're looking for it. Another piece of it too is cultivating that positive mindset and being having a grateful heart and looking for things to be thankful for and grateful for. It changes your body's immune system. If you're going to put yourself in the best possible situation to fight, whether it be cancer or some other medical illness, that puts you in the best possible situation to mobilize all the factors in the body, your body's defense cells, and being able to fight off invaders, whether it's an infection or cancer. By cultivating a positive mindset, you put the immune system in the most optimized state.
I'm so happy you said that. And then, David, I want to talk to you about it too. But we're learning so much now about the mind-body connection to pain and disease. And we're learning so much now about how something as simple as freaking gratitude can legitimately turn people's lives around. And so, David, you saw it firsthand, man. And this isn't to say, we should probably make this caveat, right? This isn't to say that there aren't tough days, hard days, bad days, angry days, all that stuff. But it means that more than not, you're going to have the other mindset. And so what did you start to, did you start to notice anything physically, David, when you started to adopt the positive mindset?
I think it made some things easier. It definitely gave me the boxing gloves to fight, I guess you could say. Just like that little accessory, that little like extra tool to kind of help you go through. And I know it would have been a lot harder if I didn't have that. But even now, or back then too, when I was going through it, people would see me lying in a hospital bed and they're like, I'm so sorry for you. Like, this is such a horrible thing. And I'm like, it's a good experience. And like, I still say it now, like, I never want it to happen again. And it was hard and it was ugly and it was brutal and it was just frustrating. But it was a good experience because it taught me gratitude and patience and love and understanding and compassion and all of these things that I wouldn't have had that perspective for otherwise. So like, I'm able to have that now and look back on those things and say, wow, this made a difference. And I can see all of the good that it taught me. And that's why for me, I never want to forget. Like, I know friends, family members who are like, yep, that happened. That's in the past. You beat it. I'm so happy for you, but let's let it go. But for me, I never want to forget because I always want to be appreciative of those lessons that it taught me.
Yeah. And I want to feel so strongly urged to say to somebody right now, like, you don't have to wait for a horrible moment to change your life. You don't have to wait until somebody says you've got cancer to change your life. You don't have to wait until somebody dies to change your life. Like, you can literally choose something new today. And you're proof of that, right? I mean, gosh, your story is just incredible. What are you thinking about right now, Dr. Davis? Because you sat in the chair for so many years and heard the suffering. You heard the tough times and the really hard moments in people's lives. But to look down on the screen and see David and this guy who's like seemingly mentally and spiritually figured it out, and then physically too, because he is in remission, the cancer is gone. What are you thinking about as you look at him?
Well, one thing that came across is you didn't deny the negative things that you went through. You didn't deny the pain or the terrible days, or maybe the vomiting and nausea and things like that along with it. You have to kind of embrace the suck as you're going along. And and if somebody comes to visit and you're not feeling well, I think it's okay to just say, hey, today's just really not a good day. And, and it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, that you're either, cultivating a positive attitude and at the same time ignoring the negative things that are there, or like pretending that they're not a factor. I think you can fully embrace, like, this is miserable. I'm in a lot of pain. I don't feel like doing anything. I wish that I could get up and stay awake for more than 2 hours. I'm just so fatigued. You can embrace the negative aspects of it, but at the same time be forward looking and finding positive things. And I'm curious too, did humor play a role in your treatment and recovery?
He's laughing already.
Yeah. So
I'm asking. Yeah.
It was awesome. Humor definitely played a role. I remember there was one night where I had friends come visit me in the hospital, and my fiance was there as well, and we're playing cards. And it was awesome because like we're in like the little like family gathering room. So I'm out of my hospital, patient room, and we're just playing cards and we're having a good time and we're laughing and joking around. And like the nurses popped in, they're like, "Hey, David, you're being too loud. Like, you need to keep that." I'm like, "I am so sorry." Like, I'm a patient. I should know better. Like, but it was that, or it was having friends over for like a pizza night and we're just like making pizzas and it's a great time. Or, I'm able to make the first post, about me being bald and showing off that picture and saying bald is beautiful kind of a thing, and just like embracing that too. And, that was definitely something that helped as well, was just that laughter. And I remember one of the first social media posts my wife made, then fiance, was a picture of us from our engagement photo shoot. And we were both laughing and she said, "Laughter is the best medicine." And like, it was one of the first ones. Like, I don't even know if we said out loud to the world, like, I had cancer, but like, that was one of the first ones. And the people who knew, like, they knew, but that just was great. And she was awesome. She was my fiance. She was there for the first 165 nights. Like, wherever I slept, she was there, whether that was a hospital chair, whether that was a cot. Maybe we got lucky and we could ask for a cot, whether that was, at my parents' house, because that's where I was staying. I had to move back in with them. Wherever I was, she was there for the first 5 months. And the only reason it stopped was because she caught a cold. And the doctors were like, "You cannot be around him right now." So like, she had to literally be told no, but she's getting, 3 hours of sleep in a hospital chair to wake up to go be a first grade teacher for 8 hours, to go home, to shower, to get the cooties off of her, to come up to see me in my hospital room, to spend 2 hours awake with me, maybe 3, to fall asleep and do it all over again. Like, but that was my rock. Like, that was my caregiver. Like, we established that was her very early on. And I'm like, "I want you to be this person." And it was beautiful because then we were working towards marriage together, right? So in sickness and in health, like, we got that part covered.
I just love the simple message in everything he just said, right? And we've talked to so many people along the way who have basically said the same thing. Like, when you're going through something hard, sometimes the best thing you can do is just be with me, just sit with me, just spend 165 days with me, whether it's in a bed or cot or at my parents' house, right? And there's such simplicity in that message, and we kind of forget, because we, especially dudes, right, we can want to be like fixing everything and trying to find solutions all the time, and we forget that the best thing that we could offer somebody sometimes is just time in a cot. Like, really, it's that simple, right?
Yeah. And even like just being there. I mean, there were some days where, like I said, for my book, it was a diary or a reflection log from each day. And there were some days where I would just be so overloaded that I would just, like, my wife, she's like, "How was your day?" And I couldn't answer her verbally. Like, I'm going through so much agony right now, I can't talk about it. But I would just type it up on my computer, show her the screen, and then like have her understand. And then she even would type back and then show it to me. And like, we would just have a conversation. We're 5 feet apart, like, just through the computer. But it was beautiful because then, she was just there. And that's just what I needed at that time. That's one of the biggest things, is just for cancer patients, like, let them like forget for a minute, because this is nonstop 24/7. Like, and it was awful. Like, some of the best times during treatments were when I was dreaming, because for a moment I don't have cancer, and then I wake up and now I do. But if I can have an hour out of the day where I forget that I have cancer, and that goes to the limitations too, because a lot of caregivers or friends, family members, doctors, nurses, whomever, might try to say, like, "You can't do this," or "Don't do that." Like don't go to the movie theater because you could overwork yourself and you could get sick. But I need to go out. Like, I will accept these things because I know for my mental health, like, I have to do this. So that's something too for cancer patients. Like, you have to trust that they are asking for what they need, and that they're being smart about their treatments, and that they understand these things. Now, I was lucky. I was a 20-some-year-old. For kids, that's heartbreaking, because parents have to make those decisions.
Right.
Or if it's someone who's a little bit older, maybe in their 70s, 80s, they might not be able to make those decisions. And it's, their child who's making the decisions for them. But it's so hard, but you have to give them that voice. Like, you have to let them do those things that they need to do, because they have to have a release. They have to get it out somehow.
Dr. Dave, I want to give you the final word on today's podcast, just because we've talked about so many different things today, everything from anxiety and depression to suicidal thoughts to cancer to overcoming. What are you compelled to leave people with here on Learn from People Who Lived It?
Well, I was going to make one comment about limitations on treatment. There may be concerns about a weakened immune system and becoming infected or whatever. And when you hear, you can't do this, you can't do that, I think a helpful way to rotate that around is how can I do this in a way that's not going to make the doctor's concerns come to life? How can I do this in a way that still allows me to get the best treatment possible and not jeopardize the path that I'm on, but still be able to do the things that I need to, connecting with other people, getting out of the house, seeing something different. So really put some thought into that and try to find some way of compromising where you can get some of what you're looking for, and at the same time, respect the intention of what the people that are trying to treat you are warning you about. So I think that's probably the right balance to have. But as far as summing up, the sometimes being faced with death is kind of the thing that shakes people out into developing a mindset that will help going forward for the rest of your life, right? So cultivating a positive mindset, developing gratitude, finding a sense of humor in the dark places, those are all things that will serve you regardless of what's happening, and not just because you dealt with cancer for that period of time, but pretty much anything that life can throw at you. Now you have a whole rounded set of tools to be able to go at it and stay positive and stay connected to the people that are important to you and not push them away. And so, there's always, things that can come out of it, and definitely some good life lessons that, unless you go through the crucible, you don't get those experiences.
David, any final thoughts from you?
Just for anyone who's listening, who's going through a difficulty, just know that others as well, like other people are going through struggles as well, and it's okay to lean on them. That was something that really, really helped me throughout my cancer journey. Was I met up with a friend who was my age, who was diagnosed maybe about a month after me, my exact same diagnosis, exact same age. And we just relied on each other, and we texted each other, and we would just talk it out. My priest actually was going through a cancer diagnosis as well at the same time. And there were times I would just go into his office and just say, I'm like, I need to talk. And he's like, I get it. And that was so helpful, was because I was surrounded by other cancer patients that I could just say, do you know what I mean? And they would say, I do. And I felt validated. I felt heard because they knew exactly what it was like. So find those people who are going through those struggles as well, lift each other up. That was something that helped me with my suicidal thoughts too. I had a buddy, I said, call me anytime you feel like these things are coming on, like I will be there. Like, surround yourself with that support group, something I didn't have in middle school. Find those people, lean on them, help each other, be honest with them, and just build each other up, because no one's supposed to be alone. No one's supposed to be an island.
I love it. David, thank you so much. Dr. Dave, thank you so much too. I think what we experienced today is inspirational in nature, because leave it up to me to say the obvious, but cancer isn't always leukemia or some disease in your body. Cancer is people in your life, a toxic job, toxic relationships. Like, cancer can be a metaphor for so many things that we tolerate every single day. And if there's anything that I have learned from you today, David, it's this: you keep going back into your toolbox. And I know Dr. Dave will agree with me on this. At every turn, you head back to your toolbox, whether it's talking to somebody, getting a buddy, having somebody along for the ride, getting more information, allowing yourself to feel sick. Like, you really truly lean into your toolbox of all the things that you've picked up along the way. And that's what sustained you. And isn't it crazy to think, and maybe I will give you one more final word, but isn't it crazy to think that back when you were in 6th and 7th grade, man, there was a moment in your life where you were thinking about being done? And just think about what you would have missed out on, because let's end with this. Where are you now? What is your life like now? What are you experiencing daily?
And
that you wouldn't have if you would have changed in those moments.
And that's the full circle. Like, that's where I wanted to talk about the suicidal stuff from middle school, is because that would have ended it. And because I went through suicidal thoughts when I was in middle school, as an adult, I've been able to help other teens who are going through those things. They feel comfortable talking with me, and I can say, I understand, because I do. For cancer patients, I can do the exact same thing. For blood donors, you mentioned that earlier, like there's such a need. Like, I can talk about that now and inspire others, because I was a blood recipient. 37 people kept me alive. I can talk about that now because I'm still here. But I'm just living life, man. Like, it is so good. Every day is a blessing. I have a beautiful, beautiful wife. We have been married now for, coming up on 6 years. I have a 3-year-old baby girl. We adopted, and I wouldn't have her if it wasn't for cancer. Like, because of chemo, I'm infertile, but we're able to adopt, and I have this beautiful baby girl, and I wouldn't trade her for the world, man. Like, she was the one I was supposed to have, hands down, no doubt. And like, cancer gave me my daughter. Like, that's the thing. Like, I have this because of that bad experience. Like, I'm inspiring others in the classroom. Like, I'm teaching them, I'm leading them closer to God, which is such a big thing for me. Like, that's what I want in life. Like, I want people to look at me and say, he loved others and he led people closer to God, and he made a difference in his world. And he just tried to help people. Like, that's what I want to be known for. And I'm doing that. Like, not egotistical, not, to bloat myself, but I was given the chance to make the most of it. I had that recognition of, hey, you could have 3 to 4 weeks, and I was good with that. But I've done so much more now because I've had this extra time, and I'm just getting started, man. Like, we're going to blow it up. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. And I can't wait to see why he kept me alive. It's going to be awesome.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1, to help you feel less alone. 2, encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3, when you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word, Learn from People Who Lived It.